Joe Ciricione is an expert on nuclear proliferation and the former president of the Ploughshares Fund. It's good to have you with us. It's been a while.
Thank you, John. Nice to be back.
Okay, so it seems we have moved from this idea of using nuclear weapons in a first strike capacity as being unthinkable to now it's becoming sort of acceptable, at least for some countries. I want you to listen to Sue Terrier, former CIA analyst, with an assessment of what's happening in Pyongyang, specifically referring to Kim Jong-un and his sister. Listen to this.
In addition to Kim Jong-un's focus on tactical nuclear weapons and these missile tests, both Kim Jong-un and Kim Yo-jong have been threatening preemptive use, taking a page out of Putin's playbook.
So with that in mind, a recent survey found support in South Korea for developing its own nuclear weapons, now just over 70%. And there are calls from some in Taiwan to have its own nuclear deterrence, the Saudis as well. This list goes on. So big picture first up here. Are the days of living under the security of America's nuclear umbrella coming to an end?
I wouldn't call it over yet, but it's definitely fraying at the edges. And part of that is because of what Vladimir Putin is doing. He's trying to normalize the use of tactical nuclear weapons, talking about this as a reasonable step that he might take in a conventional war to use nuclear weapons first. The North Koreans don't need any lessons from this, from Vladimir Putin, of course. They've been making nuclear threats like this for a very long time. I agree with your analyst. They are seeing a little bit of a difference of using them first, so not using them in response to a U.S. nuclear strike, but using them first to try to intimidate South Korea and North Korea. And as you get this cascade of loose talk about nukes, you do start to get governments seriously thinking about breaking their commitments to the United States. South Korea has promised it would not develop nuclear weapons. But you see this kind of rising sentiment in Japan, in South Korea, in Taiwan. So yes, it's a sign that the global regime that we set up to stop states from getting these nuclear weapons is weakening, is fraying at the edges, and is in need of urgent repair.
And with regard to North Korea specifically, Jeffrey Lewis, who's an arms control expert, tweeted, "What I find notable is that these launches are not framed as tests of the missiles themselves, but rather of the units that launch them. That suggests these systems are deployed." So specifically, what does he mean by that?
Yeah, that's a key point. You do military tests for two reasons: developmental, to test a system. For example, the intermediate range ballistic missile that they flew over Japan was a new configuration of a missile they had. So they're testing it. Does it work? Does a reentry vehicle work? But there was another series of tests, 7 missile tests together, that were using well-tested missiles. But they weren't testing the delivery vehicle, they were testing the ability of the units to have a coordinated execution of a strike. And then they bragged about it. So you saw North Korean media say this was an exercise of tactical nuclear weapon strikes. They are sending a clear message to South Korea, to the United States, that we're ready to use this if we're pushed.
And if Russia is to use a nuclear weapon, most believe it would be a tactical nuclear weapon. And under all the treaties, Moscow is not required to make public how many non-strategic nuclear warheads it has. The Federation of American Scientists believes the number is just shy of 2,000, which is incredible when you think. How effective, though, are these weapons in a practical sense? What would be the response from the US and NATO if Moscow did use this kind of weapon?
You know, Ronald Reagan and Mikhail Gorbachev started us down the road of eliminating these weapons. They tried to do it all at once. They couldn't, but they started steady reductions over the last 30, 35 years. But those reductions have stopped. We never finished the job. So Vladimir Putin does have somewhere between 1,000 and 2,000 so-called tactical weapons, weapons that can be fitted to short-range, medium-range systems like the Iskander missile. These are not small weapons. These are Hiroshima size, 2, 3, 5 times the size of Hiroshima. These are major weapons of mass destruction. So there's nothing trivial about their use. It isn't like you could use this thing and it would be like a conventional explosion. No, even the smallest one of these is still many times larger than any conventional explosive force. So this is serious. I think the probability of their use is low, but it is not zero, and that should worry all of us.
Because when Putin has said he will do something, in the past he's done it.
Yeah. You know, he's got several purposes here. Mainly, it's a terror tactic. Mainly, he's trying to weaken European support for Ukraine, split American support for Ukraine, try to convince the Ukrainians to surrender and let him occupy the land he's occupied. But beneath that is also the very real threat. He has the means to do it. He has a method to do it. Russian doctrine calls for the first use of nuclear weapons if they are losing a conventional war. And he certainly has the motive. He is losing this war, both in Ukraine and now in Russia, where more men are leaving the country than surging into the armed forces. So, yes, this is a real risk. We have to take it seriously. We have to do all we can to convince him that this is a losing move, that this will not win the war for him. And if he takes this move, if he crosses this line, there will be, as the National Security Advisor has said, catastrophic consequences.